2 minutes.
Grant. Lieutenant Corday, thank you for that. Minister, I want to raise the very critical issue of commuter services, particularly to my constituency of North Kildare. Obviously, it's pertinent to the whole country, but I'm concerned about North Kildare. North Kildare is probably the greatest percentage of population commuting into work in Dublin, according to the census figures and according to lived reality and what I've seen living and working there and commuting from there for the last 15 years. We have seen numerous difficulties caused by what I understand to be industrial relations difficulties at Irish Rail and at Bus Éireann and potentially other related companies in the transport sector. We have seen buses refusing to turn up or failing to turn up at Kilcock in particular, also at Clane and Prosperous. That would be the 115 route, which services Kilcock, Enfield and Mullingar, the 120 route, which services Clane and Prosperous and on out to Eden Derry, and indeed the 126 to Naas is beginning to be impacted as well. People are literally being left at the side of the road, unable to get to work, and early morning services. In addition to that, Irish Rail, we are well aware of 6 planned service interruptions, 6 planned strike days coming off over the next 6 weeks, many of them very critical times. And not only are the service disruptions becoming the norm, but planned improvements, so things that have been long sought and long campaigned for, and were finally being arranged, such as the 10-minute DART, which improves, believe it or not, the Kildare timetable, additional services through the Phoenix Park Tunnel into the city centre. The Phoenix Park Tunnel is a wonderful initiative, but the popularity greatly exceeds the supply. It had been agreed with Irish Rail and the NTA that extra services would be put on that route. Extra capacity, people are struggling to fit into the carriages, struggling to board in the morning even in safety. Extra services and carriages and rolling stock and extra times were to be added to that route. All of this is on hold with no end date because of what I understand to be industrial unrest across the unions. I'm not sure if it's official. I think in the Irish Rail case it may be, and the Bus Éireann case it may not be so. But things like this timetable disruptions are not part of any official dispute, official or otherwise, as far as I'm aware, and yet management seems to be unable to roll out these improvements while these issues persist. Minister, I do wonder, because I've been asking this question for some time in the House, including yesterday in the Order of Business, have you, Minister, gone out in solidarity with unions on strike yourself? Because I haven't seen you active on it, and I imagine you're going to tell me that you're not going to get involved. So maybe that suggests your solidarity with the unions. Maybe you're going to go slow yourself, Minister. Maybe you could clarify that for us.
Thanks, Lieutenant Corley. Minister Ross, I mean, it's astonishing that we're faced again with a national transport strike during your administration. We went through this before with Dublin Bus and with Bus Éireann, and eventually, of course, we had a settlement. I think the workers, very hard-working company and the staff, with our 5 trade unions, Unite, SIPTU, TESA, TWU and MBRU, I think they took a very mature and responsible line at the Work Relations Commission. As you know, they seem to be inching towards a settlement of around, I think, 2.5%, a little bit over the general public service rise, which has already been agreed. And then suddenly there was a debacle and it was stopped. And a lot of people think this was stopped on the orders of your department, of you, and that you in actual fact were not prepared to give additional, the normal, if you like, pay rise in the public sector to workers in this area. It has to be said, of course, that all during the years of the 2 austerity governments before your government, the PSO funding has been absolutely slashed. If you look back to 2008 or 2007, when the company received a PSO of almost €190, down through 2008, 181, 2009, 170, 2010, 155, 2011, 148 million, 2012, 166, 2013, 127, 2014, 117, and 2015, 117, right down the PSO absolutely slashed, while at the same time successful rail companies from Deutsche Bahn all across the European continent, of course, receive very significant subsidies, very often up to 2/3 of their turnover from their governments, because we need to have a good public transport system. One of the worst features of this, and the final point I want to make, Cathaoirleach, is that the document that apparently Irish Rail, Iarnród was presenting at the Labour Court set out that 4 important lines, Limerick to Ballybrofield, Limerick Junction to Waterford, Ennis to Athenry and Gorey to Rosslare would be closed. What on earth could be the logic, the rationale for this, given that we only funded the Ennis to Athenry in recent times, and that Gorey to Rosslare is vital in the context of Brexit? Minister, you need to sort this out.
Deputy, thank you. Minister, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and I'd like to thank the deputies for raising this question, which is obviously going to be important to the travelling public in the coming weeks, whatever the outcome. I'd just like to make one comment on what Deputy Broughan said before I answer more generally to both points. The idea that somehow I intervened in any industrial discussions in any form recently is completely and totally untrue. I want to put that on the record, because for you to say that somehow I stopped it, which is what you said, is absolute and total utter nonsense. I had no involvement whatsoever in those talks. I'd just like that to be made absolutely clear, because, Deputy, when you say those things, I'm sure they're said with good intent, and no doubt you've heard them from people who may well have been involved in some way or interested in those talks, but I can tell you categorically that that is not the case. Let me then, I share both deputies' disappointment that the WRC-led discussion between unions and Éireann ended without agreement. Of course I do. I have responsibility for policy and overall funding in relation to public transport. I am not, however, as I said to Deputy Broughan, involved in the day-to-day operations of public transport. Industrial relations and pay are a matter for the company and its employees, not for me. Pay disputes have to be solved by engagement between an employer and its staff. The state can assist through the normal industrial relations machinery available in these circumstances, and the Labour Court and Workplace Relations Commission are the appropriate fora for these discussions. And that is where a resolution was achieved in the disputes which we have already witnessed, very regrettably, in the last year. I've made it clear, and I have to say it again here to make it absolutely clear, time and again, that I will not intervene in areas where it is not appropriate for a minister to intervene. I will not dictate to management or unions an agreement that only they can craft because it relates to issues that only they have an insight into. The WRC and the Labour Court are ready and able to assist both parties in coming to that agreement. I am disappointed that despite the intensive efforts by the parties, facilitated by the WRC and previously the Labour Court, that it looks like Irish rail commuters may face disruptions in coming weeks. In relation to another issue which has been raised by Deputy Broughan, and I'll come to yours. If I don't come to them now, I'll come to the reply, I promise you, the next reply. Okay, I'll come back to them again because he can come back to me. I recognise that subvention levels were reduced during the recession. Deputy Broughan, most areas of public expenditure were. But PSO subvention increased last year, again this year, and will increase yet further next year. Over the 3 years, PSO subvention will have increased by some 35% in total. In 2018, 285 million of exchequer or taxpayer funds will be allocated to support the delivery of these socially necessary but financially unviable services throughout the country. As is normal, the precise allocations to the individual transport companies will be decided by the NTA, the National Transport Authority, in exercise of its statutory mandate and in accordance with the various contract arrangements that it has in place with PSO service providers. I'll address the issue, I think, which you raised there, Deputy Lawless. A number of services were impacted, you're quite right, during the early stages of the changes in rosters. Bus Éireann have advised that this is continuing to implement that it is continuing to implement measures to further improve service levels and that recently there have only been a very small number of cancellations. So far this week, the company has confirmed that there have been no cancellations due to driver unavailability. Regular updates were issued by the company with regards to delays and cancellations, and additional measures were introduced by the company to regularise operations and minimise impacts. It's understood that agreement was reached at the WRC on Tuesday last, the 24th of October, to ensure all aspects of the Labour Court recommendation, including new rosters, will be rolled out by the 12th of November.
Minister, thank you. So, supplementary follow-up, Deputy Lawless.
1 or 2 minutes.
1 minute, yeah.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, unfortunately, it's a cold comfort to the commuters literally left waiting in the rain at the side of the road that you cannot get involved, or you will not get involved. The figures you mentioned about Bus Éireann, I met the Chief Executive of Bus Éireann this week and discussed this with him also. He was available, put your question for that, to have the conversation. Of some 300 odd services, only 7 were impacted. Unfortunately, that 7 was the same bus every day for a week. So the people, again, who are trying to get down to get to work at 7 a.m. at the side of a road in Cocock or Clane or Prosperous had the same experience every day. In addition to that, as I mentioned, in addition to the service disruptions, we are seeing effectively we're going backwards. The rail network had progressed to an extent where it actually was becoming competitive, was becoming attractive as a mode of transport, on price, on comfort, on convenience. But the type of improvements, like the Phoenix Park Tunnel, which are extremely welcome and extremely needed, are now being hindered by the fact that you cannot even use the services because the rolling stock is inadequate. And the new timetable improvements to introduce off-peak services and additional carriages, etc., are all being curtailed. And, Minister, I don't think this is part of the official industrial action. I think this is probably a knock-on of poor relations within the management structures and the unions, but it's not part of the official action, and yet it's being allowed to continue unchecked for several months at this stage. Surely you could direct some discussion on that point alone. There's the likes of the 10-minute dart, the additional Phoenix Park services, etc., because they don't fall, as far as I understand it, within the parameters of the current dispute, and yet they're being hindered for the same reason.
Deputy Broughan.
Thanks, Caherla. Well, Minister, I think you have a huge responsibility to the travelling public and to the company and the workforce that rolling strikes on the 1st, 7th, 14th, 23rd of November and December 8th just don't go ahead. I mean, you need to take action to ensure that this is stopped. I mean, the public want it settled quickly. You're talking about, for example, you have no influence in relation to the decision, the veto apparently that the CEO gave when the unions and management were inching towards and were very close apparently to a settlement. But you've set the parameters, and the government has set the parameters on public sector pay. I mean, I think there's 5 trade unions. They acted in very good faith. They're willing to discuss productivity. You mentioned there the Labour Court report. They want the National Rail Company to be dynamic and successful, and it has a huge future role in the context of climate change and in the context of increased population. It's against the background where your government and the previous governments, you've cut well over 100 million from the PSO, and now you're threatening to cut another 4 lines of our very basic rail network. We should be talking about expanding a rail network, building Lewis's and Cork and Galway and so on, not this kind of very negative penny pinching talk that you've always engaged in as regards public services. Thanks, Caherla.
Minister for response.
Thank you, Deputy Broughan. I just don't think you were listening to what I said, but never mind. If you wish to turn deaf ears to what I said, that's absolutely fine. I can't do anything about it. I haven't cut PSO. I've quoted you already. Maybe you weren't listening to what I said. I haven't cut PSO. Somebody else may have cut it. Don't tell me I cut it. I never cut PSO. PSO, as I explained to you at the beginning, has gone up and will go up this year as well. That's not just an ambition, that's a fact. And it will, as long as I'm Minister, hopefully continue to go up. So please don't, I understand your point of view perfectly, and I sympathise with a lot of what you say, but please don't just quote things to me which are factually incorrect. Also, I haven't threatened anything to the rail network. I haven't threatened to cut 4 lines, 5 lines, 6 lines. I have not threatened, Deputy Broughan, and don't say it. There may be a report. I didn't write the report. What the position about rail is quite simple. We believe in rail. We subsidise rail very heavily because we believe in rail. The Rail Review has come up with certain suggestions, and the Rail Review has come up with an overview, certain alternatives. They will be decided in due course after the national framework has been, planning framework has been discussed and decided on as well. But we believe in rail. That doesn't mean that we always believe in promoting non-economic rail lines, but no decisions of any sort on rail have been taken. And indeed, I've made it absolutely clear since I came in that the kind of scare stories that there are going to be massive cuts in the rails are just not true. That's the sort of scare stories which are run from the opposition benches because it's convenient. And I've repeatedly said to colleagues of yours over here that there is no privatisation agenda on rail in this side of the House. The opposite. We're continuing to increase the subvention to hope to run an efficient, well-run railway. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
Address the question addressed in the topical. Just I'll give you another 30 seconds.
The specific issues which were addressed by the Deputy Deputy Lawless. I think on those issues, specifically, I'll refer them back to my department and I'll give you a reply afterwards because I don't know the answer. When you're asking me to give you something on a specific line, it's an operational matter. And it's fair enough that I should refer it back and get you an answer from them. It is an operational matter. It's not up to me to micromanage in Rodarin or any part of public transport. But I will ask them specifically to answer any queries which you have, which we can answer.
Lovely. Deputy Eamon O'Cleave.